This podcast is supported by the original organic bedding and bath brand, Koyuchi.
Koyuchi has spent 35 years pioneering quality organic textiles, long before the word organic became, trendy. But words matter to Koyuchi. Words like craftsmanship, longevity, and wellness. So what does the word wellness mean to Koyuchi? It means that all of our products are absolutely free from harsh chemicals and dangerous toxins that can seep into your skin. It means effortless style that looks as good as it feels with naturally breathable, pre-washed organic cotton. And what does all of that mean to you? Well, it means that you can sleep well in Koyuchi's crisp, cool, luxuriously soft sheets that are ethically made and made with you in mind. Live well, sleep well with Koyuchi. And now during our Memorial Day sale event, you can enjoy 20% off organic cotton sheets, towels, and everything else at Koyuchi.com. That's Koyuchi.com for 20% off from now until May 25th. Koyuchi.com.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan. Tonight, 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Why have we asked our contractor we found on Angie.com to be our kids' legal guardian? Because he took such good care when redoing our basement that we knew we could trust him to care for our kids, all 8 of them, should something happen to us.
Are you my dad now?
No, sorry, I do basements. Connecting homeowners with skilled pros for over 30 years. Angie, the one you trust to find the ones you trust. Find pros for all your home projects at Angie.com.
The big game commercials are basically must-see TV. This year, Elf Cosmetics went all out with an absurdly funny telenovela called Melissa. It stars Melissa McCarthy, Nicholas Gonzalez, Itati Cantoral, and Elf Glow Reviver Lip Oil. The Elf Glow Reviver Lip Oil is an ultra-glossy tinted lip oil that nourishes, hydrates, and enhances your lips' natural color.
Watch the full episode of their new Elf novela on soyunbaño.com.
Well, the holidays have come and gone once again, but if you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life a gift, well, Mint Mobile is extending their holiday offer of half off unlimited wireless. So here's the idea. You get it now, you call it an early present for next year. What do you have to lose? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Limited time 50% off regular price for new customers. Upfront payment required. $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan. Taxes and fees extra. Speeds may slow after 50 gigabytes per month when network is busy. See terms.
Support for The Middle comes from the stations that air the show and from you. Thanks for making a donation at listentothemiddle.com.
Welcome to The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson, along with our house DJ, Tolliver. And Tolliver, we are very excited to say we have some new listeners to welcome this week.
I know. They keep coming. Welcome to the listeners of KRPS in Pittsburgh, Kansas, also WLRH in Huntsville, Alabama, and WHCP in Cambridge, Maryland. Bienvenidos.
Yes, and we actually have an Alabaman on the show this hour, so that'll be exciting. Very different places around the country, but all part of the United States, all under the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, and that's what we're talking about this hour. As you know, the Democrats have very little power in Washington right now because they don't control the presidency or the House or the Senate, so a lot of the opposition to Trump is focused on taking him to court, and there are now more than 200 active cases against the administration, and the White House is also launching other lawsuits of its own against states. So the Supreme Court, with its 6-3 conservative majority, half of those conservatives appointed by Trump, has become even more important in the balance of power in the United States. The problem is polls are showing a drop in trust in the court to be fair. A YouGov poll a few months ago found 68% of respondents thought the justices often let their own personal or political views influence their decisions. So this hour, we want to know what you think. Do you trust the court to be fair? And if not, what can be done to restore your trust? Tolliver, give us the phone number again, please.
You can call us at 8444-MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. Or you can write to us at listentothemiddle.com or comment on our live stream on YouTube. I'm collecting your comments, and I will get you on air. So send them to me.
And we will get to those calls and comments in a moment. But first, last week we asked you for your thoughts on the role the government should play in science and scientific research. Here are some of the voicemails we got.
This is Jonah calling from Greenville, Wisconsin. Imagine if you're in the 1940s and your neighbor who doesn't believe the polio vaccine works. Imagine if he had everyone else's phone number and he just called them all at the same time and said, the vaccine doesn't work, don't take it. Imagine if that guy had a megaphone. That's the kind of world we live in now.
This is Amy Price. I'm calling from Columbia, South Carolina. I am a 20-year veteran science teacher, and I try to suggest to them what they can do for future careers in science. And now they're being shut down. And I feel like I have lied to my students about their careers in science.
This is Randy Cron. I am calling from Birmingham, Alabama. We are going to lose a generation of scientists with what's currently going on in this administration. So it's not just a short-term problem. This is going to be a really long-term problem, attacking universities and attacking science.
Well, thanks to everyone who called in. And as always, you can subscribe to The Middle wherever you get your podcast to hear that entire episode, which, by the way, featured Neil deGrasse Tyson. So now to our topic this hour. Do you trust the Supreme Court to be fair? And if not, how could your trust be restored? Our number is 844-4MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. And joining us this hour, former Alabama Senator Doug Jones, a Democrat. He was also a United States attorney in Alabama. Senator Jones, great to have you back.
Jeremy, it's always great to be with you. Thanks.
And we're also joined by Zachary Shemtob, who is executive editor of SCOTUSblog. Zachary, welcome to you.
Very glad to be here.
So before we get to the phones, Zachary, there are a lot of polls out there, but they all kind of do show this alarming drop in trust in the Supreme Court. What do you think is going on?
So I'm going to take maybe from the start, I don't know if it's a contrarian position, but maybe a little different of a position. I think that in terms of trust, I think we can all agree with this, that it has fallen in terms of every institution. Whether you're talking about the media, universities, Congress, obviously, the presidency, but just across the board. And the court is no different. So I think that it's this larger result of a loss in trust in institutions across the entire board, rather than necessarily being specific to the court itself. And I think that's also evidenced by the polls, which show that it's the partisanship that makes the difference here. Republicans are generally supportive, Democrats, not as much.
Well, yeah, what do you think about that, Senator Jones? And do you think that to that point, it's just Democrats are unhappy now because it's a more conservative Supreme Court?
No, I don't think it's just that. I think it's a combination of several things, including the fact that there have been numerous allegations of ethics violations, ethics improprieties, that I think have cast a pall on certain members of the court. And they seem to be the ones leading the charge. It is not just that you've lost. Look, we've had courts in the past where people have disagreed with the positions. FDR wanted to pack the court back in the 1930s. But the court survived that because it was made up then of only men, in more recent times, men and women of integrity, that knew when they should recuse, knew when that they should not take gifts. And so I think there's some personal part of this that's caused the problem. Certainly I agree with Zach that the partisanship has gotten over the top. And so that people, while it is a lack of confidence in the court, it's really a lack of confidence by Democrats in the more conservative justices and vice versa. I think that is a huge problem, and that one is going to be very difficult to overcome.
Well, and Zachary, on the issue of what Senator Jones is talking about there with the ethics, has anything changed in terms of the ethics code since all the stories came out about Clarence Thomas, one of the justices, accepting, millions of dollars over the years in gifts and not reporting them?
The court adopted an ethics code. It is not a particularly strong ethics code, and ultimately it's regulated by the court itself. And there aren't deep consequences if there are violations of that code. So yes, something has changed, but I don't think it's gone enough in the direction most people would necessarily want. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, the other thing that I wanted to bring up is the question of the court's authority. There was this, earlier this year, the Supreme Court ruled 9-0 that Kilmar Abrego Garcia had to be returned from El Salvador, from that prison in El Salvador. And the Trump administration took months to comply with that. Does the Supreme Court have a credibility problem if they can't enforce their rulings, Senator Jones?
You know, clearly, for those people who understand the court and know the law, which I think we have a civics problem in this country these days, they'll understand that the court has very limited things that they can do to enforce its court orders. That is usually left to the executive branch to enforce court orders, whether it was school desegregation or whatever. And so I think there are some things that there has been discussed in terms of trying to get more power to the court. I just don't think that they can do that in the separation of powers that we've got. And let me go back, Jeremy. I want to mention one other thing, too, that I did mention a moment ago about the court's credibility. I do think that this court, and it clearly is the conservative majority, people are losing faith in this court because they are issuing so many opinions that are not really opinions. They're emergency docket orders that are overturning lower court orders in favor of the Trump administration. And so people do clearly see, and I think rightly so, and I know I'm a little bit biased here too, that this court has a political agenda here because this is unprecedented, the way the court is using emergency procedures. And I think that's a real issue because it is just the opposite of conservative when lower courts are saying we need to impose an injunction here, keep the status quo until this case is resolved. And then all of a sudden the Supreme Court says, no, go ahead and fire all these people. Go ahead and do all this, and then we'll decide the merits later.
You're talking about what's called the shadow docket, where the Supreme Court can rule on emergency cases quickly and without oral arguments or full briefings. Zachary, if you ask the justices if they think they have a problem, they will say no. Amy Coney Barrett has said she does not think the U.S. is in a constitutional crisis at all. What is the opinion among the people that you speak to at SCOTUSblog about whether we are really in the credibility crisis that we're hearing about?
I just wanted to mention one thing in terms of the emergency docket. The court's approval rating or trust in the court was falling well before this exploded. So this, there are many issues with this, but I don't think it explains the drop in the approval rating. In terms of what I'm hearing in terms regarding credibility, I mean, there is no doubt that there is a deeper, skepticism of the court than existed only a few years ago. And you hear that, across the board. But again, there is a profound partisan difference between what conservatives think of the court and the credibility that they lend to it and what, those on the liberal side of the spectrum believe. And you have folks kind of in the middle who are a bit all over the place.
Interesting. And Senator, just on the issue of the shadow docket, one more question for you. Do you think the Supreme Court really has a choice, though, in the matter? If the executive branch comes and says this is an emergency, we need a ruling right away on this thing, can they really say no?
Yeah, of course they can. They're the Supreme Court. But they would have to issue some kind of ruling. But the point I think that's being made that I think that is hurting, you've even got U.S. district judges and appellate court judges now criticizing the court because they're not giving them any guidance on what to do with the emergency docket. All of a sudden, you've got all of these courts saying, we're going to maintain the status quo while this case is heard. That's what the lower courts are saying. And almost in every occasion, at least for this term, the Supreme Court says, no, we're not going to worry about the status quo. We'll go ahead and let the order enter, and we'll decide the merits later, which is, I just think, a backwards way of looking at it, and I think most Americans do. And I understand what Zach is saying about it falling, but I can tell you from the folks I'm talking about to all the time, they are talking about the court overturning those lower court orders consistently and not keeping the status quo.
Well, we will see what our listeners think. Again, you can call us at 844-464-3353. Tolliver, I have actually had the privilege over the course of time of meeting some Supreme Court justices, and I will tell you that whether they're conservative or liberal, they do believe that all 9 justices are acting in good faith according to the law.
Yeah, and Chief Justice Roberts has talked a lot about the need for the court to be seen as independent. Here he is earlier this year in an MSNBC interview.
In our Constitution, judges and the judiciary is a co-equal branch of government, separate from the others, with the authority to interpret the Constitution as law and strike down, obviously, acts of Congress or acts of the president. And that innovation doesn't work if it's not, the judiciary is not independent. Its job is to obviously decide cases, but in the course of that, check the excesses of Congress or of the executive, and that does require a degree of independence.
Degree of independence. By the way, Tolliver, just a reminder, as we are coming towards the end of the year, that we are accepting and more than happy to accept donations in any amount at listentothemiddle.com. It's very important for us to be able to do this show, to hear from the people who love it the most, which is you, the podcast listener. If you can make a contribution at listentothemiddle.com, we very much appreciate it. It's tax deductible. And thank you so much. We'll be right back with more of The Middle.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan. Tonight, 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Why have we asked our contractor we found on Angie.com to be our kids' legal guardian? Because he took such good care when redoing our basement that we knew we could trust him to care for our kids, all 8 of them, should something happen to us.
Are you my dad now?
No, sorry, I do basements. Connecting homeowners with skilled pros for over 30 years. Angie, the one you trust to find the ones you trust. Find pros for all your home projects at Angie.com.
How do you make chicken nuggets like 7,000% better? Short answer, you let Taco Bell make them. Long answer, start with all white meat chicken nuggets, bread them in crunchy tortilla chips, and serve them with Hidden Valley Diablo Ranch. Yep, that's Hidden Valley Ranch mixed with Taco Bell Diablo sauce. It's exactly what it sounds like, and somehow even better. Simple math, spicy results. Crispy chicken nuggets from Taco Bell. A brand new classic. At participating U.S. Taco Bell locations for a limited time only, while supplies last.
Ever wonder why so many people regain weight after stopping a GLP-1? Up to 40% of the weight lost can come from lean muscle. This weakens the body, slows metabolism, and makes it easier to put the pounds back on, creating a cycle of dependency. Prolon's 5-day fasting-mimicking diet offers a drug-free way to maintain results and support long-term metabolic health. In just 5 days, it activates fasting pathways to burn fat, protect muscle, and rejuvenate cells, all while letting you enjoy real food. Get 15% off plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe at prolonlife.com/iHeart. That's prolonlife.com/iHeart.
This is The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson. If you're just tuning in, The Middle is a national call-in show. We're focused on elevating voices from the middle, geographically, politically, and philosophically, or maybe you just want to meet in the middle. This hour, we're asking you if you trust the Supreme Court to be fair, and if not, what can be done to restore your trust. Tolliver, what is the number to call in?
It's 8444-MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. You can also write to us at listentothemiddle.com or on all social media.
All right, I'm joined by former Alabama Senator Doug Jones and SCOTUSblog executive editor Zachary Shemtob, and the phone lines are lighting up, so let's go to Dave, who's in upstate New York. Dave, go ahead. What, do you trust the court?
Absolutely trust the Supreme Court.
Really? Tell us more.
Well, I believe they're doing what needs to be done to protect the Union and protect our freedoms.
Do you think that they are giving a little too much deference to the Trump administration right now?
Not really, no.
Why not?
Why not? Well, the way I see it, we've got a bunch of Marxist, atheist, satanic socialists that are trying to destroy this country, and I believe Trump, the Republicans, and the Supreme Court majority is working to prevent that.
Okay. Dave, thanks for the call. It sort of goes to the point, Zachary, there. Conservatives think the court's being fair. This person, obviously a Trump voter, and liberals don't like what they're seeing right now. Zachary, your thoughts?
Yeah, I would be curious, and I don't know if you'd be comfortable doing this, but just asking, if folks are comfortable answering, in their political ideology, and I would not be surprised if it mapped on 1-to-1, where conservatives who call in will support the court and liberals who call in will not.
Well, and that's why it'll be interesting to see if we hear from some independents this hour. Steve is calling in from Edwardsville, Illinois. Steve, go ahead. Do you trust the court? Hey, Steve, listen to the phone, not the radio, and tell me, do you trust the court?
Steve, from our home state of Illinois.
He's lost interest. Let's go to Nate, who is in Milwaukee. Nate, do you trust the Supreme Court?
Hi, thank you for having me. And right now, I'm very questioning of how much I trust the Supreme Court. I think you could fix two different things. Thing number one is the way people end up getting on the court. We should probably have term limits and then a set number of people that a president can appoint in one term, so that you don't have political parties in the U.S. Senate trying to play with the system to pick who does and does not get on the court. Also, I'm from a state that was gerrymandering, and thankfully that's over. But all the gerrymandering talk had been over years ago with a court case called Gill versus Whitford, and the lower federal court had actually gotten rid of the ruled against gerrymandering here in Wisconsin, and then the Supreme Court took it up, and Republicans from all over the U.S., including the RNC, basically wrote to the court saying, please preserve the ability for state governments to rig elections. And I think that's something that basically goes against anybody's common sense about what an election should be.
Nate, thank you. Senator Jones, on the issue that he brought up there about term limits, this is something that was proposed when Biden came in as president. It never happened. It hasn't happened. Do you think that could ever happen, that there would be term limits on the justices, that it's not for life?
I don't see that happening. Certainly not in any of our lifetimes. I include all of you younger guys on there too. I just think politically that's a difficult thing to do, because as the pendulum swings, and one of these days I believe it will swing a little bit again, people are going to start wanting to have their cake and eat it too. I just don't see any real changes to the court that is meaningful anytime on the future. Most of them would take a constitutional amendment to change the makeup, or to do it, not to change the makeup in numbers, but to change certain things. I think would require a constitutional amendment, and that is difficult anyway, and just damn near impossible in such bitter partisan times that we're living in right now.
Zachary, do you agree with that?
I agree entirely. I think that regardless of whether one supports term limits, and I think most folks actually do, it is extremely unlikely to happen anytime soon.
It's interesting, though, because there is nothing that says, for example, that there have to be 9 people on the Supreme Court. There's nothing in the Constitution that says that.
Correct.
There's also there are other ways around it besides doing actual term limits. Couldn't they do like a rotating cast where they say this federal judge from the Third Circuit gets to come onto the Supreme Court for a while?
Yes, that's been one of the proposals, has been court packing, removing. I mean, there are all sorts of things that can be done. Congress could do something called jurisdiction stripping, which is probably one of the most extreme measures, which essentially doesn't allow the court to hear cases on appeal. And so there are so many different things that could be done,
but won't.
But again, as the senator talked about, we're just not in the political environment where that's likely to happen.
Okay, Joseph is calling from Philadelphia. Joseph, go ahead with your thoughts.
Oh, how you doing, Jeremy? Hi, Senator Jones, and how you doing, Zach?
Yo.
How you doing?
Great, doing great.
Hello.
Well, I just thank you so much. I'm glad y'all doing well. Our praises be. I just want to say this. I don't have faith in the court, as I told Tolliver, the producer. I said, because you can't have a court that don't go by the rule of law. these judges, especially the ones that Trump supported, even the ones he didn't appoint, they bias towards Trump. They don't even go with the rule of law. Like here in Philadelphia where I live, I've talked to common pleas court judges, and they say, Joe, I don't let my personal beliefs, whether it be abortion or whatever, I go by the law. I deal with the rule of law. And too many of these guys on that Supreme Court, Clarence Thomas, one of them, Mr. I take gifts from everybody, Thomas, these people have no integrity, man. You just going to rule in favor of Trump when you know the man is clearly wrong. I mean, he's, to me, this is my own personal view, he's the worst president this country ever had because he has no integrity. He just lie, and people just blindly support this guy while he's taking this country downhill. It's a shame that people in this country can't see Trump for who he is. In my opinion, I'm an African-American man. In my opinion, I close with this. The most decent president that this country ever had that had any human decency was President Jimmy Carter, who had the honor of shaking his hand back in 1980 when he came to Philadelphia. And that goes for Barack Obama. He was a warmonger. Yeah. President Carter is the only decent man to ever hold his office, President Jimmy Carter. And may God bless him and rest his soul. He was a good human being. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you. Senator Jones, as you hear that, I wonder, what are the consequences for our democracy if people say what Joseph said and they just don't trust that the court is being fair?
Well, I think one of the ironies of what he said just then was about President Carter, and I believe he's one of the most decent guys we ever had. And Zach, if I'm not mistaken, President Carter did not get a Supreme Court appointment. He's one of the only presidents who did not get a Supreme Court appointment. But, look, I want to take a little bit different approach to that answer, Jeremy, because I get it. I'm out here, but in Alabama and other places, and I hear the visceral reaction to so many of these Supreme Court decisions. But for folks old enough, like me, you would remember when Jim Crow laws started to be dismantled and school desegregation cases were being decided by the Supreme Court. And throughout, particularly the South and in some other states, there were impeach Earl Warren billboards that were up all over. So I think Zachary's point earlier about this mainly being partisan, it used to be that the conservatives hated the Supreme Court because of Earl Warren and Hugo Black and William O. Douglas and others. Then they called them an activist Supreme Court. Now it's just flipped. And that is the nature of electoral politics and where things stand. And I think if we could get away a little bit from our political partisanship, we would also help the Supreme Court, but it would also give them, I just hope that there can be some people on that court that can really see that that is the one institution that does not need to be viewed through partisan lenses. And it is right now, and I will say finally on this point, part of that is also the media, because everybody always says, this decision was authored by Obama appointee X or Trump appointee X. And so they're automatically labeled. And when there is a crossover, people are shocked and they don't know.
And I remember John Roberts saying, sort of slapping down Trump a while back, saying there aren't Obama judges and Trump judges. There are just justices of the court. And that's that. Tolliver, what's coming in at listentothemiddle.com?
Sure. Brian from Tampa says the politicians and justices enjoy the two-party conservative versus liberal figurative war. The two parties are pulling the tug-of-war rope as hard as possible. That's why both parties are immoderate. Nobody wins a tug-of-war by pulling with moderation. EJ in Michigan says, let us not forget how the Supreme Court supermajority was created. Please address the way McConnell manipulated the system to allow Trump to place the justices he did on the court. I got a lot more, but I'll just start with those two.
Yeah, no, that's interesting, and we are going to get to that. Let's go though to Bill, who's in Watertown, New York. Bill, go ahead with your thoughts.
Hi, Jeremy.
Yeah.
I think the Supreme Court is ruling on common sense. Every ruling that I see is common sense, and the president is governing on common sense. So
you think they're being fair?
Absolutely, yeah.
And do you find that is
I don't think the lower court should be getting in. I mean, they're acting like they're president. They're acting like they're Supreme Court or something.
Yeah.
How can they rule for the country?
And did you vote for Trump this time?
I did.
Yeah.
But I'm not a Republican. I mean, I'm nothing. I don't normally vote, but I had to do something.
Okay. Bill, thank you for that call. Another Zachary, another Republican, or not. He says he's not a Republican, but he did vote for Trump, who believes that the court is being fair right now and operating in common sense. Let me get another call in here. Ryan is in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Ryan, go ahead. Do you trust the court?
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I don't trust the court, but that's not because of the court itself. I think I reflect a lot of Americans that don't trust most institutions like public education, traditional media, and a lot of our politicians. I'd like to ask your guest a question. Yeah. Aren't we going to have to start addressing like reestablishing civil society and reestablishing trust in many of our institutions, our basic institutions on Main Street, before we can really start addressing reestablishing trust in a more abstract institution such as the Supreme Court?
Let's go. Zachary, it's been a while since we've heard from you, so you can answer that question.
No, I mean, ultimately, yes, I agree completely. I think at the end of the day, we can talk about and may talk about different piecemeal changes that could be made to the courts, and I have plenty. I'm sure that Senator has plenty as well. But I don't think you're going to see a dramatic swing in trust in it until the foundations, the bedrock itself changes and this partisan fever abates. I don't know when or if that's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Don't see it happening anytime soon. But I don't see the trust in the court. And I think we're learning this through the callers in our discussion. I don't see trust in the court returning to where it was until something more fundamental changes.
By the way, our show next week is all about sort of restoring the ability for people to talk to people that they disagree with politically. And one of the things that comes up in that program, which we recorded it live in New Hampshire, is that social media is pulling us so far away from things that we can agree on. And we're spending a lot less time even in our local communities, talking to people that may disagree with us politically, but agree with us on all kinds of other things, and showing our sort of shared humanity. Let me sneak one more call in here. Ann in Boulder, Colorado. Ann, go ahead with your thoughts.
Hi there, guys. So I may be the unicorn. I am liberal. I'm an attorney. I'm a legal commentator, and I do trust and have faith in our Supreme Court, even our current Supreme Court.
Nice. You are a unicorn.
Yeah, tell us why, Ann.
May I tell you why? Yeah. Well, because being an attorney, and I have been one for decades, I know that, first of all, a case does not get up to the Supreme Court unless reasonable minds can differ on the interpretations and applying the law to the facts. And I have faith that if you get to be a Supreme Court justice, you have demonstrated that you have the brains and that you have the rational, you're rational, and you have demonstrated your ability to weigh the merits of the case and to apply the law. And, when we have a liberal activist Supreme Court, then conservatives are upset. And when we have a conservative Supreme Court, liberals are upset. But that doesn't mean that the justices aren't doing their job. And I have not seen a single opinion come out of the Supreme Court that isn't supportable by the law and a reading of the law. That's their job, is to interpret the law. So, yes, I trust them. And when I think it was Zachary who said partisan fever, man, that's exactly what's going on.
Yeah. Ann, thank you for being our unicorn so far in the show. Appreciate the call. Senator Jones, what do you think about what Ann said there?
Look, I appreciate that very much. I think what we were discussing by and large was whether the public is distrustful of the court. And I think overwhelmingly the public is. I have a certain element of trust in myself. However, I disagree with Ann a little bit in that I have seen some court decisions that I think they had to do some real mental judicial gymnastics to reach an end, and they wanted a certain end, particularly on some gun cases that I think, going back to trying to determine what the originalists were talking about with the Second Amendment when we have the kind of weapons on our streets that we have right now. It's going to be interesting to see what they do in the coming weeks or months with regard to the new gun case involving people with drug problems, drug addicts. So I do think that there have been decisions that you just scratch your head and wonder what's going on. And clearly, my personal opinion is that there are a couple of these justices that clearly have political agendas and have long since kind of shed what judicial philosophy that they had in favor of their political opinions. And you couple that with the ethics issues that were faced. That's a real dagger to the court as a whole, I think, which is unfair to most of those justices, because most of those justices, I would absolutely agree with Ann.
Well, Tolliver, we said we would talk about this. We remember that Republicans wouldn't let President Obama fill the seat of Antonin Scalia when he died, saying they didn't want to do that in an election year, but then they put Trump's pick, Amy Coney Barrett, on the court literally as the election was happening in 2020.
That's right, and Barrett replaced Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg after her death. Here's Ginsburg talking about the court during her confirmation hearing in 1993.
Supreme Court justices are guardians of the great charter that has served as our nation's fundamental instrument of government for over 200 years. It is the oldest written constitution still in force in the world. But the justices do not guard constitutional rights alone. Courts share that profound responsibility with Congress, the President, the states, and the people.
You know, Tolliver, this is where we should remind our podcast listeners that they don't get to hear you play music like the radio listeners do, and therefore they don't get to hear what you played on the radio show right at this point.
And it's so good, you know.
Which was?
Notorious B.I.G., Mo Money, Mo Problems, right?
Because they call her Notorious R.B.G. Yes. Exactly. It was a lovely moment. But anyway, we'll be right back with more calls coming up on The Middle.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan. Tonight, 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Why have we asked our contractor we found on Angie.com to be our kids' legal guardian? Because he took such good care when redoing our basement that we knew we could trust him to care for our kids, all 8 of them, should something happen to us.
Are you my dad now?
No, sorry, I do basements. Connecting homeowners with skilled pros for over 30 years. Angie, the one you trust to find the ones you trust. Find pros for all your home projects at Angie.com.
You see it instantly. It's Coldwater Creek, the mark of exceptional workmanship and signature touches inspired by a Mountain West heritage. Distinctive styles created from quality fabrics, silhouettes perfected with just the right drape, feel-good fits offering ease of movement, and thoughtful details to elevate your look. Coldwater Creek's authenticity is embodied in every piece, embracing its confident spirit that carries through to today. Discover Coldwater Creek clothing, designed to fit your life the way you want. For a wardrobe you can count on season after season, visit coldwatercreek.com. Shop the new spring collection at 20% off $75 or more with code IHEART20.
Welcome to the A Building. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba. It's 1969. Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. had both been assassinated, and Black America was at a breaking point. Rioting and protests broke out on an unprecedented scale.
In Atlanta, Georgia, at Martin's alma mater, Morehouse College, the students had their own protest. It featured 2 prominent figures in Black history, Martin Luther King Sr. and a young student, Samuel L. Jackson.
To be in what we really thought was a revolution. I mean, people were dying.
1968, the murder of Dr. King, which traumatized everyone.
The FBI had a role in the murder of a Black Panther leader in Chicago.
This story is about protest. It echoes in today's world far more than it should, and it will blow your mind.
Listen to the A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson. In this hour, we're asking you what can be done to restore your trust in the Supreme Court if you don't trust the court to be fair right now. You can call us at 844-4MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. Or you can reach out at listentothemiddle.com. I'm joined by SCOTUSblog executive editor Zachary Shemtob and former Alabama Senator Doug Jones. Actually, before we go back to the phones, Zachary, it doesn't seem like the court takes as many boring cases as they used to. I remember covering the court term each year, and there would be a lot of cases that were really complicated and boring and didn't seem like they were ones that were going to make the headlines. Now they seem like they're all really political, really vital opinions that they're coming out with.
They're not. They do take fewer cases than they have in the past, but there are still plenty of technical, quote unquote, boring ones. Not obviously for the parties involved, but what many of us would consider boring, and you can certainly see plenty of those on SCOTUSblog. But yes, certainly I think the contentious cases get a lot more attention than they once did, and now it's just 24/7. So yeah. It certainly seems like every case is, partisan or ideological.
Okay, let's go to Susan in Teutonia, Idaho. Susan, go ahead. Do you trust the court?
Hello. No. And I have to say, I'm 76 years old. I had great respect for the court most of my adult life, and it's been absolutely shattered recently. And I puzzled over this a lot. Why are they making such bad decisions? You can see Citizens United and Second Amendment decisions. There's so many that are causing harm to our country and undermining democracy. So I think it goes beyond politics. And what I have a question for you, where did this originalist doctrine come for interpreting the law? And why can't we, in the vetting process, get to the ideological backgrounds of people who are appointed? So those are my questions.
Okay, yes. Susan, thank you. Senator Jones, one of the people that loved the originalist doctrine was Antonin Scalia, who of course passed away many years ago. But yeah, go ahead.
I think that's where it came from. And everybody, he just kept at it. He did it in his dissents. And it just, as it grew, so grew judges around there. The Federalist Society and others adopted that, and that's where it is. But even with that, it is just really difficult to have a pure originalist, look at this. You have to look at what they thought was the original intent, but then apply it to the facts that you've got today. So it's still really a little amorphous. It is, because you can't strictly construe it. There were some senators, when I did Justice Jackson's, that really thought you should just go strictly by the letter of the Constitution, period, end of discussion. That's never going to happen, but it is, people look at it, and even I think the more liberal justices use originalism more than people realize.
Well, and on the issue of the Citizens United, that was a different court. That was I believe a 5-4 court, 5-4 conservatives and liberals rather than the one we're in right now. And Bush v. Gore, of course, which is a very controversial case from 2000, was also a very different court than what we have now. And there were more liberals on that court, Zachary. So it's interesting, the cases that you think about that really alarm, especially people on the left in this country, came from a court that was much more evenly divided than the one we have now.
Right, and then you have plenty of other controversial decisions prior to that. So, I mean, to me, it goes to the point, which I don't think the senator will agree with, to be fair, but it's that the court has always been political, and I think you have always had, political justices, for better or worse, and I think that one of the major differences now is how aware of it people are and how much it's spotlighted and how much it's called out, where going back to John Jay, certainly going back to Chief Justice Marshall, who, based on our rules now, actually should have recused himself in Marbury versus Madison, but that's a whole other story. There have been all sorts of political issues from the get-go. So this is nothing new, even though people seem to often act otherwise.
Yeah, can I say, Jerry, I agree with Zachary on that. I do understand and see that there has been a political bent, but there have been so many cases too where the politics was put on the back burner, so to speak, because of court precedent. You could tell that folks didn't really particularly care, but court precedent did that. And that kept that view, I think, that it was somewhat at least independent. But clearly, the Supreme Court, like every other court, they got their jobs because of politics. It's that simple. And they got their jobs because of the political and judicial philosophy that was consistent with the president's. And that's the one thing that I think people often forget. I think totally agree with Rick. A lot of what we're seeing is not new. It's really not.
I anchored the all-day NPR coverage on the day that Christine Blasey Ford, and who was the accuser of Brett Kavanaugh, and Kavanaugh testified on Capitol Hill. It was a big day, and I remember that Kavanaugh, basically, you say they're political in how they get their job. He used the Trump model of just like attacking, and he ended up, of course, on the Supreme Court after that. He did what the president wanted him to do, it sounds like. Let's get to Devin in Denver, Colorado. Devin, what do you think? Is the court fair?
I think, like you guys said, it's a very politicized court. But at the end of the day, this is the last institution that everybody's trying to fight for. A lot of people are giving up on the president. We have lobbying, and it's ruined Congress. And you can't ever fight. My generation, 27, 26, we're kind of tired of it. We've seen it with Bernie and things like that, and we're tired of the institutions. I do think that the justices tried their best to interpret, but I also know that it is a very politicized arena, and I just think it's probably very difficult to make some of the best decisions as possible. And, like you said, there are some external factors and influences, and this is the reason why a lot of the young people are kind of disgruntled with the political system and just the government as a whole.
Well, and Devin, would you say you're more on the right, on the left, or in the middle?
I've been demonized as an independent since the day I could vote, when I was 18. So.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Well, great. Well, thank you so much for calling in, Zachary. An independent there. We got that unicorn checked off the list, but. And he wants to give the court the benefit of the doubt, it sounds like.
He absolutely. I thought it, very interesting, and I thought it was pretty disturbing how he said he had been demonized as an independent. But I do think there is a moderate bloc who wants to give the court the benefit of the doubt. I think that voice is often lost because the ones who come forward and the ones are the more partisan elements. But yes, that it certainly does exist. It's just, as we know, not the dominant voice.
Let's get to Jamal, who's in Estes Park, Colorado. Jamal, what do you think? Do you trust the court?
I do not. There's the question both of, as you've been making clear, this particular court, these individuals, and then the institution. And I disagree with those who are saying that this is just another direction that the political wind blows, that people always... Certainly it is true that people on the opposite side of a particular decision or political situation are going to disagree. But quite way beyond that, it seems to me that there is more appearance of impropriety with this court than, as far as I'm aware, there has ever been with any Supreme Court in the history of the United States. However, beyond that, this particular court illustrates the weaknesses of the institution. It's a classic who guards us from the guardians situation. Quis custodiet estos custos.
Thank you for the Latin.
Yes, called it.
Estos custos.
Yeah. So we are at a point right now where we have this brand new thing, AI, that is being incorporated incorporated into governance willy-nilly, and that's a really bad thing. But we have the opportunity to incorporate it broadly. And I think I'm hearing a lot of callers talking about the broad-based lack of faith into the institutions. I think it's time to take seriously what Churchill said about democracy being the worst solution in the world except for all the others, which is a call for something new. And one part of that, I would love to see the human participation in the Supreme Court become the completely transparent care and feeding of AIs.
Okay. Oh, wow.
AIs
okay. AI justices. Yeah.
Demographic.
Interesting.
So the actual decisions are being made.
Yeah.
Impartially.
We've got it, Jamal. I get your point. Let's go to Senator Jones. I mean, I don't know if you want to answer that. Look, everybody is using AI for everything right now, so I guess we should take that seriously. Like, could the court be using AI to help make their decisions?
Well, I don't know if they're using AI to make their decision, but they're using AI probably to do some of their opinions. But I also would point out around the country more and more, you're also seeing courts having to sanction lawyers for using AI citations that just don't exist. And so it's a problem. We're not at a point by any stretch of the imagination that we should take the human element out of this. I mean, look, we talk about the rule of law, we talk about justice, we talk about precedent. But at the end of the day, there's 9 Supreme Court justices for a reason. And that is because not everybody agrees on the interpretation of the law, even when the black letter law says X. And I hope we never take that human interaction out of interpreting the law. I just think it's going to be important because once you start getting AI doing it, it's Katie bar the door on where we could end up.
Tolliver, what else is coming in online?
Abdul in Sugarland says, I think we should do away with the party system and let people run for all public office based on their ideas, and the president can nominate judges based on merits, and the Senate can either accept or reject because there's no party tag associated with them. Jonathan in Pittsburgh, PA, says 6 Supreme Court justices see those who are not members of the wealthy elite as nothing more than rats. Pretty tend on an aggressive one, but
yeah. Let's get to Colleen, who's in Colorado. Colleen, what do you think? Do you trust the court?
Hey, hi, this is Colleen, but I'm actually in the western suburbs of Chicago.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, wonderful. Okay.
I do not trust the Supreme Court, and somebody had touched on this, something that really wasn't in my realm of awareness, but when they granted Trump immunity from presidential actions and he could not be held liable, I think, granted, it was a small scope of things. It only pertained to certain things, but he certainly has taken that and run with it. So for that, and that other caller who phoned in, the younger gentleman, I think he said he was 26 or 27, the Supreme Court, also in my eyes, I'm 53, was our last hope, our final sort of say-so, and like, let's put the brakes on, let's take some time. And I feel like they've just abandoned that completely to appease him and are falling over themselves, like that this comment just was made. If you're not in this upper 0.1%, it's sad that the Supreme Court doesn't even consider your rights. My God, the Voting Rights Act is being re-examined. Women's health autonomy was already eliminated. It's no longer serving the purpose for which I believe it was intended to serve the United States citizenry.
So what do you think needs to be done, Colleen?
I agree that perhaps, it's going to be like the senator said, it's hard to pull out the politicization because they are appointed by somebody they're aligned with politically. If there is a different way to elect, if there's a way, if you add more, I don't know that that's going to solve anything, but maybe a term limit on it, maybe some way to ensure. I mean, again, it's all interpretation. There is some fallacy there, so it's hard to say. I haven't really thought about the solution piece of it, but I do think it is sadly biased right now. It is harming Americans. It's very unfortunate that it is operating as such a political entity.
Yeah, Colleen, thank you for that. Senator, I wonder the other sort of solution, even though nobody would ever say this is the solution, but that the justices just do a decision that makes it clear that they're not just on the same side as Trump all the time, which they have done, by the way. I mean, the Albrego Garcia decision was 9-0 against him.
Well, yeah, and there's been others. There were some in the first term. And right now, quite frankly, we haven't seen a lot of actual decisions yet because Trump has not been in office that long. And what we're seeing are orders in the emergency docket, the shadow docket. So I think this term is going to be really important because there are a lot of really interesting issues out there. And I think people are looking at what he can do on the independent agencies, those kind of things. But I think people do need to understand the one thing about Donald Trump, he is testing not just the court, he's testing the law. And he is going to win a lot of these, and he would win a lot in a lot of other courts. But I think he'll lose some. I don't think that he's going to bat 1,000 with this court. I really don't.
Do you agree with that, Zachary?
I do, and I think there are two cases in particular which he may well lose on. The first one is if it's granted, and I think it will be, is birthright citizenship on the actual merits, whether that order was unconstitutional. I do think that the court, and I don't necessarily think it's going to be 9-0, but I do think that the court will go against Trump. I think also in the tariffs case, that's a closer call, whether Trump had the power to put these tariffs forward. But I think you may see something like a split decision there, where they don't entirely agree with the president. Maybe they give something and take something at the same time. So I think in those two arenas, we may well see them pushing against the Trump administration.
Okay, I know I'm going to regret this, but I'm just going to let Liz on for a second here from Middletown, Ohio. Liz, please just tell me what you were going to say because it sounds like it's going to be funny.
Hi, you hear me okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, okay, well, I think we put the wrong people on the Supreme Court. My Tennessee, who would I put on the Supreme Court? I would put the Supremes on the Supreme Court. The song that first made them famous in the late 60s, the title was "Where Did Our Love Go?" That's something our country needs right now.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Liz. I knew that. I knew that would be a nice way to wrap up the show. It also reminds us, Tolliver, that some people have a drink before they listen to the middle. I'm not saying not for sure, but it could be. I'm not blaming her if that's the case. Anyway, I want to thank my guests, SCOTUSblog executive editor Zachary Shemtob and former Alabama Senator Doug Jones. Thanks so much to both of you for joining us.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you.
And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. In a few days, we're going to be talking on the podcast about what happens next with the No Kings protests. And next week, we'll be back here with our special broadcast from Concord, New Hampshire about restoring civility to our politics.
And a reminder, you can subscribe to our podcast, our YouTube channel, buy Middle merch, or make a tax-deductible contribution to The Middle at listentothemiddle.com.
The Middle is brought to you by Long Nook Media, distributed by Illinois Public Media in Urbana, Illinois, and produced by Harrison Patino, Danny Alexander, Sam Burmistaz, John Barth, Annika Deschler, and Brandon Kondritz. Our technical director is Steve Mork. Thanks to our satellite radio listeners, our podcast audience, and the 440-plus public radio stations that are making it possible for people across the country to listen to The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson. I will talk to you next week.
You see it instantly. It's Coldwater Creek, the mark of exceptional workmanship and signature touches inspired by a Mountain West heritage. Distinctive styles created from quality fabrics, silhouettes perfected with just the right drape, feel-good fits offering ease of movement, and thoughtful details to elevate your look. Coldwater Creek's authenticity is embodied in every piece, embracing its confident spirit that carries through to today. Discover Coldwater Creek clothing, designed to fit your life the way you want. For a wardrobe you can count on season after season, visit coldwatercreek.com. Shop the new spring collection at 20% off $75 or more with code IHEART20.
Over the last couple years, Didn't we learn that the folding chair was invented by Black people because of what happened in Alabama?
The Montgomery Brawl.
This Black History Month, the podcast Selective Ignorance with Mandy B unpacks Black history and culture with comedy, clarity, and conversations that shake the status quo. The Crown Act in New York was signed in July of 2019, and that is a bill that was passed to prohibit discrimination based on hairstyles associated with race. To hear this and more, listen to Selective Ignorance with Mandy B from the Black Effect Podcast Network on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
1969. Malcolm and Martin are gone. America is in crisis. And at Morehouse College, the students make their move.
These students, including a young Samuel L. Jackson, locked up the members of the Board of Trustees, including Martin Luther King Sr. It's the true story of protest and rebellion in Black American history that you'll never forget. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba.
Listen to The A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Ryder Strong, and I have a new podcast called The Red Weather. In 1995, my neighbor, Anna Trainer, disappeared from a commune.
It was nature, and trees, and praying, and drugs.
So no, I am not your guru.
And back then, I lied to everybody.
They have had this case for 30 years.
I'm going back to my hometown to uncover the truth. Listen to The Red Weather on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed Human.